It's hard to make ends meet, especially if you have a lot of mouths to feed. Linda has been picking up extra shifts since her husband had a stroke. The disability insurance isn't that much help. With 4 underage children, 40 hours a week and some overtime will not be enough to meet their weekly expenses. That's why she picks up extra agency shifts every now and then, to compensate for her husband's lack of work. On that fateful weekend, she got a shift which is an hour away from her place. It was raining when Linda left their house to her husband's disagreement. She traveled under the raging storm into the woods. It was difficult to locate her destination because it's not showing in her GPS. She knocked on the door of the cabin, and introduced herself to a pleasant-looking old lady, with curled-up black hair who opened it. The cabin was quaint but well-maintained and decent. The only thing strange about the place, was that it reeks the smell of rotten meat. The old lady led Linda to the room of her bedridden husband. She warned her that he can be combative and refuses care, but she didn't have to worry about the curses, because her husband is mute. When she entered the room, she saw the old man lying restlessly on the bed. Next to him is a Hoyer lift for transfer. The moment she walked in, the old man on the bed gave her a demeaning look, piercing through her eyes. Linda approached him and introduced herself. But the man spitted on her. Having dealt with a lot of the same patients, Linda just smiled, assessed him, then hanged the TPN bag to a pole beside the bed. When she was about to insert the solution to the line of the old man, he kept on resisting and spit it again on her. But she managed to insert and ran the solution. Then the old woman suddenly entered the room, and invited Linda to have some snack. She was startled because she didn't notice or heard her come in. How long has she been on the door? Was she watching me? Linda thought while a bit creeped out. The old lady offered her some baked cookies and hot tea. They were chatting when Linda noticed a small door on the floor with deep scratches, like the ones she sees on horror movies. It looked like it leads to a basement. She figured that it's where the rotten smell is coming from. She suddenly felt jitters which she can't shake off. When the old woman saw Linda looking suspicious, she said that she used to have cats, but she got rid of them because they're destroying the place. Got rid how? And how many cats were there? Because looking at the scratches, it will take hundreds of cats to make those marks. She was in deep thought when the TPN machine went off. She immediately went to the man's room and saw the man pulling the IV out. She tried to stop the man but her strength was failing her. Her hands felt numb and her knees became weak. Her vision started to blur as she slumped on the floor. Then she saw darkness and lost consciousness. When she woke up, her hands and feet were tied. She can barely loosen the tight ropes. The old woman started dragging her using the Hoyer lift, to the door leading down to the cellar basement. She was screaming frantically, asking the woman to stop and put her down. The woman, now looking menacingly, ignored her while grinning slyly. Linda kept screaming as she continued to scratch on the floor, with now her broken and bleeding nails. With all of her strength lost, she found herself hanging upside down above the open door of the basement. Her head began to hurt as blood rushed down. The smell of rotten meat was shrieking from below. Linda was horrified upon seeing bloody corpses. Then she puked when she saw chopped body parts. Then thoughts suddenly raced in her nearly insane mind. Is this the end? Is this my ultimate price for ignoring my family? I only want to provide for them. Then the old woman stood in front of her, sharpening a butcher knife. She was grinning with her eyes wide open, looking crazy excited, with her mouth watering. Like a predator ready to attack its prey. Linda asked the woman why she's doing this. The old woman just simply said, "You look tasty." Then without wasting any more time, she sliced a portion of Linda's arm, like slicing a meat for maximum tenderness. Linda cried out in an agonizing and unbearable pain. Then the old woman fried Linda's flesh, like frying a tenderly sliced meat. She ate it in front of her saying, "I'm right, you're tasty. If I haven't cut my husband's tongue, then I would not know how delicious you are. My husband used to warn the nurses, but not anymore." The woman continued slicing Linda in different parts of her body as she cried, screamed and bled. Her blood started flowing to her head. Her consciousness is slowly leaving her. She just closed her eyes, as she hears the old woman munching on her flesh. Then she woke up startled, as if waking from a terrifying nightmare. Her vision was blurry, but she can hear people speaking to her. She was in disbelief but grateful, when she realized she was in a hospital. When she was about to talk, there was no sound coming out from her, and her mouth began to bleed. The doctor said that her tongue has been cut. Linda wanted to scream, but she just laid in silence, which she will be doing, for the rest of her life. Emma found herself caught in the relentless grip of success, as she thrived on late nights and early mornings. Her days blending into an endless blur of meetings and deadlines. Her apartment, which is a sleek haven in the concrete jungle, became her sanctuary and her prison. Even during her day offs, she works at home tirelessly, driven by a hunger for recognition and promotion. She can barely sleep because of too much caffeine for the adrenaline rush, constantly thinking of her impending assignments. One stormy evening, after yet another marathon of work, Emma was in the building's parking garage when she stumbled upon a dark figure lurking in the shadows, as if following her. Fear gripped her momentarily before reason returned. She told herself that it was just a trick of the mind, reassuring herself. The next morning, headlines screamed of a gruesome discovery. A body was found lifeless in the very garage she had left hours before. Everyone at the company was shocked and was talking about it. Some were pinpointing fingers. All of the employees were interviewed by the police, including Emma, who wasn't herself that day. Days passed and yet the incident haunted her. She can barely sleep and she's getting paranoid every passing day. She was not taking her antipsychotic medication regularly, which made her hallucinations even worse. Being sleep deprived is adding toll to her clouded mind and judgment. Her work suffered and she kept on committing mistakes. The promotion she has been aiming for seemed to elude her now. It was pouring hard when Emma was about to go home late once again. When she was at the parking lot, she couldn't help but revisit the scene of the crime. Beneath the flickering lights, lay a truth she couldn't deny. She saw a dead body which is now etched in her mind. It was one of her colleagues, Diana. Envy and anger got the best of her upon learning that a newly hired employee took away her promotion, her dream. Emma cannot accept that because she has been in the company for 10 years. But she didn't mean to harm her, or even kill her. She said there was a crazy scary woman monster following her, trying to hurt her. She hit the monster with a block of cement she found on the ground. She said she was just protecting herself from the crazy woman monster. Was she insane or just vengeful? Whether or not she'll be acquitted from the crime she committed, depends largely on the jury summoned reviewing her case. But for now, she will no longer see any dark figures or monsters, as she spends the rest of her days on the comfort and solace of her own office, where she is now her own boss. In the heart of the city, where skyscrapers loomed like ancient giants, Jacob found himself trapped in a relentless cycle of deadlines and demands. As a rising star in the corporate world, he had once thrived to quench his thirst for success. But he has been exhausted lately due to the demands of his job. He always stay late, and tonight was not an exemption, because his boss wanted him to finish a project which was due tomorrow. Jacob had already pulled 2 all-nighters that week. His colleagues already went home, leaving him alone in the eerie silence of the empty office floor. As he typed furiously, his mind began to play tricks on him. He started seeing shadows in the office windows, and began hearing whispers from office corners. He couldn't remember the last time he had slept properly. Days turned into nights, and he keeps losing focus because of fatigue. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his chest. He was gasping for breath and his vision started to blur. He clutched at his heart. He was having a heart attack. He slumped forward onto his desk, the unfinished report taunting him from the screen. Hours later, a security guard finally discovered him lifeless, with piles of unfinished papers and flickering monitors. The paramedics arrived but they were too late. In the days that followed, whispers spread through the office halls. Some said Jacob had been pushed too far by the relentless demands of his job. Others said about curses and haunted workspaces. But the truth was simple yet chilling. Jacob had worked himself to death. At his funeral service, his colleagues watched in somber silence. For Jacob, there would be no more deadlines and no more late-night emails. Only an empty desk, and a legacy of warnings unheeded.